February 26, 1959. A search team in the Ural Mountains finds a tent on the slope of a dead mountain. The canvas has been cut open from inside, not torn, cut. Everything is still inside: food, boots, warm coats, sleeping bags. The 9 people who own these things are nowhere near it. They left without their boots, in temperatures of -30°C, moving downhill, away from shelter, in complete darkness. The footprints in the snow showed no signs of panic. They walked. This is what Soviet investigators found. They spent 2 months trying to understand it. They never did. This case has been open for 67 years. The Soviet Union closed it once, in 1959. Russia reopened it twice, most recently in 2020. Forensic pathologists, military intelligence officers, and glaciologists have all examined the file. None of them agree on what happened. Here's what is on the record. Igor Dyatlov was 23 years old, physics student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Sverdlovsk. He had led mountain expeditions before. He was certified for grade 3 hikes, the highest difficulty category in the Soviet classification system. By every account, he was careful. His group was 9 people, 7 men and 2 women, all students or recent graduates of the institute. Zinaida Kolmogorova, Ludmila Dubinina, Rustem Slobodin, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, Alexander Kolovatov, Georgy Krivonishenko, Yuri Doroshenko, Alexander Zolotaryov. All experienced, all fit. Their goal: Otorten Mountain, 16 kilometers north of where they died. The northern Urals in January are not dramatic. They are not cinematically violent. They are just quietly lethal. Temperatures regularly fall past -30. Wind arrives from the north with no warning and little cover. The terrain is empty in every direction. This was not an unusual expedition for people with their experience. On January 28, Dyatlov sent a telegram from their last checkpoint. On schedule, good spirits, no problems. The plan was to camp on the slope of Kholat Syal, translated from the local Mansi language as Dead Mountain, before pushing north on the 1st of February. That telegram was the last confirmed communication. When the search team found the tent on February 26th, investigators made several immediate observations. It had been cut from the inside, multiple cuts, suggesting multiple people. The entrance flap were still closed and tied. All footwear remained inside the tent. All warm outer clothing remained inside. The stove had not been lit. The footprints led away from the tent toward the tree line. 9 distinct sets, some barefoot, some in socks or single layers, moving at a walking pace downhill. The prints remained visible for about half a kilometer before wind and new snow covered them. Investigators found no signs of a struggle at the tent site. The first 2 bodies were found near a large cedar tree at the edge of the forest. Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko. No coats, no boots. Evidence of a small fire, now extinguished. Bark had been stripped from the lower branches of the cedar. Both men had apparently climbed it. Both died of hypothermia. Soviet authorities opened a formal investigation in February 1959. The case file ran to several hundred pages. It included testimony from search team members, results from autopsies, forensic findings, and meteorological data. The investigator in charge was Lev Ivanov. His final conclusion, written into the case file, was 6 words: a compelling natural force of unknown origin. 3 more bodies were found in the weeks that followed, between the cedar tree and the tent. Igor Dyatlov himself, frozen, facing back toward the camp. Zinaida Kolmogorova, face down in the snow. Rustem Slobodin, also facing uphill, as if still trying to return. Slobodin had a fracture 6 centimeters long in his skull. The autopsy found no external wound that could have caused it. The final 4 bodies were found in May, buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine roughly 75 meters from the cedar tree. This is where the case becomes genuinely difficult to explain. 3 of the 4 had fractured ribs. 1 had a fractured skull. The force required to cause these injuries, investigators calculated, was consistent with a severe car accident. There was no corresponding external bruising on any of the bodies. Ludmila Dubinina was 20 years old. The autopsy noted that her tongue and the soft tissue around her eyes were absent. The official explanation was post-mortem decomposition accelerated by submersion in running meltwater at the bottom of the ravine. Several forensic pathologists who reviewed the case later have described this explanation as possible, but difficult to reconcile with the condition of the other bodies found in the same location. In the weeks after the bodies were recovered, investigators conducted radiation testing on the recovered clothing. 3 garments belonging to Kolovatov, Krivonishenko, and Dubinina showed elevated levels of beta radiation. This finding appears in the case file. No explanation was offered in 1959. The 2021 reinvestigation concluded the readings were consistent with natural background contamination from a prior unrelated source. Around the same period, 3 separate witnesses in different parts of the northern Urals reported seeing bright orange or luminous spheres moving through the sky on the night of February 1st, the estimated night of death. These reports were documented by local authorities and appear in the investigation archive. No explanation was offered for them in 1959 or since. Theory A. Avalanche. The most widely accepted explanation among researchers and the conclusion of the 2021 Russian prosecutor's investigation. A slab avalanche, a delayed failure of a snow layer disturbed when the hikers cut into the slope to pitch their tent, struck while they slept. Buried, disoriented in darkness, they cut their way out and fled downhill. They had no time to dress. The fractures support this. A snow slab can exert forces equivalent to a vehicle collision without leaving surface bruising. The pressure is distributed over the entire body. The terrain model of Chronicle is consistent with slab formation. The body positions, progressively further from the tent, in smaller groups, suggest people who became separated in darkness. The avalanche theory has gaps. It does not account for the radiation or the missing soft tissue or the orange spheres, but it accounts for the injuries better than anything else so far proposed. Theory B. Military involvement. Chronicle is within range of Soviet military test zones that were active in 1959. The orange spheres are consistent with certain documented missile test trajectories in the region. The radiation on this account came from contaminated equipment Krivonishenko had been exposed to through his work at a nuclear facility, independently of the incident. The injuries were caused by a weapons test, debris, or an experimental blast device. This theory is harder to dismiss than it sounds. Theory C involves phenomena that are harder to test. Infrasound, very low-frequency sound waves below the range of human hearing, is documented to cause disorientation, panic, and in some cases, hallucinations. Certain topographical formations produce infrasound under specific wind conditions. Chronicle geometry is unusual. Some researchers have modeled it. Nothing published has been conclusive. The Mansi indigenous population of the region avoided the mountain. They had a name for it before Soviet cartographers arrived. In 2021, 62 years after the incident, Russian authorities formally closed the case for the second time. The conclusion, a Type 3 slab avalanche, natural cause, no criminal act. The Dyatlov Foundation, established by the families and researchers who have spent decades working the case, did not accept this conclusion. 9 people were buried at Mikhailovskoye Cemetery in Yekaterinburg. They have headstones. They have names. The mountain still has their name too. The things that do not fit the avalanche theory, the radiation, the missing organs, the orange spheres, the fact that investigators in 1959 sealed the case and the files for 30 years, these things remain in the record. The case file, in its original form, is available online. People are still working on it. That is the Dyatlov Pass case. The file is closed. The questions are not. Avalanche, military test, infrasound, or something none of them explain. Leave your verdict below.